Well, that hang out there. All right. Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Racers News Network Live. We have one of our favorite guests on, the girl with the perpetual ear-to-ear smile. Of course, I'm talking about Carly Wolf. But before we get into talking to Carly, just a couple of quick announcements. I want to throw some shout outs out to some friends of ours that have shown cancer who is the boss. And of course, I'm talking about Linda Barrett. It's the third time smacking cancer down. So awesome job, Linda. She gonged the bell today for her final radiation treatment. So congratulations again, Linda Barrett. Also, our new friend from Ohio, of course, I'm talking about Danielle Alexa, was pronounced cancer-free the other day. So very happy for her. But again, want to say congratulations to Linda Barrett, Danielle Alexa, on smacking down cancer and showing it who's the boss. So congratulations, ladies. So now, again, we're going to talk to the young lady. She's already get the smile going. She always has a smile on it. It was comical. Last year, I don't remember if it was the divisional or the national event at New England Dragway. I was out riding around on the scooter, and I go by and I see her car up on jack stands. I drive over. I'm like, hey, what happened? Oh, well, I went through the finish line and the subframe broke. Again, big old smile, ear to ear, just kind of, it happened. She's like, yeah, she goes, the only freaky part was I really couldn't turn the car that well, so I kept going straight. I'm like, no, that girl's not a race car driver, then I don't know what somebody is. But of course, I'm talking about the one and only, the small tire super street racer, school teacher, and mechanic extraordinaire, Carly Wolf. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So how's everything?
It's a lot. It's already the end of January, but it doesn't feel like the end of January. It feels like the end of March. I'm like waiting for June to hit already.
Right.
But things are going well. At least it was a beautiful sunny day. That helps.
Well,
cold,
at least for you down there. We're gonna get pummeled with snow again up here.
Yeah, I'm not a cold person. Every time I walk outside, I say, I'm like, can we just go to Florida? Slowly planning a move there. But
Well, very cool. So at the end of the season last year in 2022, kind of do a do-over and evaluate your 2022 season. I know you had some problems. Obviously, we were kind of just joking around about one. But break down your 2022 season.
it's funny because it's just like kind of the year where like weird things just kind of happened. So we rewired my whole car over the off season, which took a lot longer than expected because I had the painless system in the car from when I bought it and figured that was probably in the car for 10 years before I bought it. So we switched over to the K&R and we finished it not too much longer before we did our first open race. And my dad was very careful removing the water temperature gauge from the dash so the wire wouldn't get pinched. And he didn't find taking it out, goes to put it back in, and the wire gets pinched. So I lose my water temperature gauge. And we go to the open, and I'm driving around, and the car says it's at like 180. And I've only done like one lap. So I come back, I'm like freaking out. I'm like, I don't understand how it can be this hot. Like, it never gets this hot. So we take the hood off and it's not hot at all. Like, we're checking it with the gun. It's fine. My dad's touching the header and he's like, this isn't 180 degrees. So we end up swapping water temperature gauges out with a friend and that starts reading something similar too. So it was a brand new water temperature gauge that I bought too. I probably left that out. So I bought a brand new one and it was faulty, put the guys in and it was faulty. So I had to race like half the season. It wasn't until like June that we finally got a working water temperature gauge. And you don't realize how like your water temperature is really important. You're like, maybe if I can do everything the exact same every single time, I'll be okay. It wasn't. I ended up losing my valve train on the third pass. So luckily Jessel kind of stepped up and helped us out so we could make it to Cecil that weekend if it weren't for them. And luckily they're only an hour from us. We would not have been at Cecil. Had some transmission issues, had a rear issue. Um, and then the sign race, it was just another funky day where the delay box fuse blew, the window wouldn't go up, car vapor locked, I got a flat tire in the staging lanes. I broke a K member. Like that was at the sign race. I was at the not the national, the divisional up at New England. So lost my trans brake up at the divisional at New England too. So a lot going on this year. And it's like we were prepared, and it was just like the only thing we didn't get to this year was the transmission. Normally we refresh it every year, and that was the one thing we didn't get to. And it was just like weird things that never bit us before bit us. So we're not letting that happen again. The transmission is now up at select, getting a refresh. I was actually on the phone with Eddie today. It's getting a new drive shaft. So we're kind of going crazy overhauling it. So nothing kind of bites us this year, hopefully.
Very cool. Now, when you wrap up the season, do you dive right into, okay, we got to fix this, we got to fix that, or do you just kind of park it and go, okay, I need a mental break?
We kind of go right away because we don't have a garage, so we work on everything in our driveway outside. And if we don't get the engine out soon, we don't want to pull it out in the snow. So we try to get it out as soon as possible so my dad can start working on it.
Cool. Now, I also noticed, obviously, you're a school teacher, and is it fourth grade?
Yeah.
Okay. It's fourth grade. Now, you had some pictures you put up. I don't remember exactly when they were, but I know they're from last year, that you got the chance to take and show your hot rod off to the kids. How did they like that?
Oh, they had like the biggest smiles from ear to ear. The coolest thing is like the town that I work in, it's 5 minutes from my house. I actually went to high school in the town. And they do a car show once or twice a year. And luckily, the way that the schedule fell is I could just bring the car this year. So I got to see a bunch of my old students, a couple of my new ones from the beginning of the year. And they got to sit in the car. They got to get like champion stickers. They got to like hear the car start up. They could see a lot. And they got a little bit of a science lesson. Got to play around with it. Their smiles were huge. Like I don't think they expected it to be like it was. I think they kind of thought it was more like their parents' car.
Right.
So when they actually saw it, they were like, "Oh my goodness, like this is crazy." And they were talking about it probably for like a week after that. Their parents now have champion stickers on their regular cars because the kids stuck it on their car. I'm like, "You should ask your parents permission." But I'll tell you, it was great advertisement.
That's awesome. Now, did you have any of the parents come up and go, you raced that, essentially?
I think it was only one. The thing about today, like today's day and age, I guess, of like working is like they look you up on social media before um they like, but the second they find out who their kid's teacher is. And I kind of don't blame them. You kind of want to know who's going to spend 8 hours with your kid every day. Um, but I think it was just like one parent, like the son told his dad, but I don't think the dad like really processed what it was. And like then he came up and was like, "Oh," he's like, "This is kind of insane." And then Matt Shapiro was actually right across from me at the car show, which was
Yeah.
pretty cool because I've been watching him race at ACCO since I first started. So that was pretty cool.
That was awesome. So did that increase your cool factor with your kids and your parents?
I think I'm the coolest teacher at school, but that's just my opinion. I mean, I think so. I think it's helps too because I'm not that much older than them, so I'm a little relatable to them. But I am quite older than them. I was graduating high school when they were born, but I'm not like so much older than them. So I think just being able to see that and then know that they're not too much further down the road if they want to pursue that path is like kind of cool for them.
That's awesome. Now, you raced obviously an HRA on the East Coast, mostly Division I stuff, but you also participated in Mid-Atlantic .90 Association. You had a pretty good year in Mid-Atlantic.
This was a rough one for us. Last year was a much better year. This one was just a
Last year,
rough
okay.
one. This one was just a rough one. It was heavy hitters first round, which that's how my dad taught me. He's like, you don't shy away from anybody. He taught me from when I was 17, I first started go up against the best because that's how you learn. Whether you're out first round, second round, third round, doesn't matter to me, just learn. So you always take away something from those races. And I don't know. It was just a rough one. Trying to do a fuel change on the car. We switched the car over at the end of 2021 to a different fuel. And it took a long time to get it dialed in for that heat, to get that tuning window right. So I kind of used Mass as like the testing grounds for it. Just so if I knew what it would do when it was hot lapped, what would it do when it was cold for when we sat for 5 hours?
Right.
But I learned a lot. So hopefully this year when we come out with Massa, it'll be much stronger.
Cool.
That's the goal.
Now, where did you end up with in points with Mid-Atlantic and you're in Super Street?
I'm not even sure. I think like 11th or 12th.
Oh, all right.
I'm not happy unless it's like top 5. But
Yeah, you know, it's virtually impossible to beat the Porsche.
yeah, he is tough. He is definitely a tough cookie. But I mean, that's what makes you better.
In capital letters with 2 exclamation points, Pete says, "Carly."
Oh.
That's all he said, literally. Carly.
Okay. Hi, Pete. Miss you.
She was hoping you were going to be on because she wanted to harass you, Pete. Is what she said when we came on. That's verbatim what she said.
I think it's more so the other way around.
Nah, he needs a good beat down every once in a while. Keep him honest. So going through the car, well, the car itself is kind of unique in Super Street ranks because it's a small tire car comparatively.
Yeah. You don't realize how much higher, like when you think 1090 index, you're like, oh, like that's no problem because a typical 1090 car is like 120 miles an hour, no big deal. But you don't really realize how important getting your suspension right, getting the tire size right, getting the gear ratio right is important until you go and you try to run a small tire car on that series. And I remember when I first started, I was told by Bracket Racer, you don't need to tub the car for a high 10-second car. I didn't want to tub it. I wanted to mini tub it. But I'm like, you don't understand. If you're not hitting the tree in Super Pro, you can lower your 2-step. You can pull delay out of your box. But if you're trying to run a 470 Pro tree, which we were at the time, on a small tire car, with a car that did not make a whole lot of torque, it's very challenging. So it took a lot of tuning to get the car to work on a small tire because it's only a 10 and a half tire. So it's nothing crazy, but it just takes a lot of time to get it right. And I think we finally have it, but I don't want to go and jinx it. But we didn't spin a whole lot this year, so that's progress. And the year before I had it dialed in for the spin, I wanted it to spin. So when it came out not spinning this year, I'm like, great, now you're throwing me a loop. I was used to you spinning. I had it figured out. And now it's not going to spin.
Did you ever, both you and your dad, just ever get to the point where you looked at the car and go, all right, we're going to cut it up and tub it?
See, my dad does body work, so it wouldn't have been too much of a challenge for him to do it. It's just finding the place to do it again because we have the driveway. But he never wanted to cut the car up because he's like, it's clean. He doesn't want to cut it apart, and I don't blame him. And a lot of it goes to show he's like, he wants to show to people like you can get this done in this class on a small tire. You don't need $40,000 in a roller or a $20,000 engine to get it done. Like he wants to prove that you can go and you can get this done as a low budget team, which is kind of really what we are. I mean, I save on the labor costs when it comes to the machinist because he's in my garage. But I mean, he has to deal with me pestering him every 5 seconds. But
Is that done yet? Did you do it? When
Yeah,
are
I'm
we
like, Dad, I really want this one to be like 50 horsepower higher. And he's like, walk away now. I'm like, can we raise the compression ratio? He's like, walk away now. You know, you can't cut pistons.
right?
True. But I mean, I think that's the cool thing about Super Street. I mean, you see a lot of cool builds in Super Street, but sometimes it is cool to see the small tire car in the staging lanes. It makes me happy when I see a couple other ones in there.
Well, it's like, the late Marty Ganjorn, with his,
Hmm.
everybody looks at it and thinks it's a stalker until they see the SST on the window. And
Yeah,
they look at it and go, huh? What? That's a Super Street car?
yeah,
This on his car, and your car too, as compared to, that. So,
yeah. I mean, and that's a big deal because it's like when you race one track and you're used to those conditions, it's not that hard to tune a small tire car to get down ACA or to get down New England if you're racing that track every weekend. But to go from track to track, condition to condition, some tracks are sandier than others, some tracks are greasier than others. It depends on where the sun hits some tracks. It's kind of like a tuning nightmare. So you're just like, man, like you kind of wish you were a big tire car. Some tracks are more torn up than others, and you're like, you get a little jealous sometimes, but you just got to make it work.
right. Now, horsepower wise, are you how comparable to middle and upper pack Super Street cars are you guys?
Well, everybody just gets faster every year. But I would say we're on the slower end. I'm like low to mid 130s. And I would say that's the slower end of the class
Right.
at this point. I did get to chase a little bit more this year, which I'm definitely not used to that perspective. When I bracket raced Pro ET, I chased a lot, but it's definitely weird chasing in Super Street as 132-mile-per-hour car because I'm only chasing like 128 cars. So it's not like they're that much slower than me. I did chase one this year where I had a 12-mile-an-hour gap on the guy.
Oh well.
So that was like a weird perspective because he's like at the 8th mile and I'm like, oh my goodness. Like you're just like trying to like close in and then you get there and you're like, oh, now I got to dump all this off. But
Right. Right.
it's definitely an eye opener when you do get one where you're like 4 miles an hour faster than versus 12. I'm not used to that perspective. That was the first time I've ever had that much of a gap on somebody.
Right. Cool. Now you also have another toy that's taking up space at your house too, right? What I know we've talked about that in the past. So can you give us an update on that one?
Goal is definitely to have it out this year. We were supposed to have it out 2 years ago. I was supposed to take it to Norwalk, and then when I hurt the engine in my door car, we kind of just like put pause on it. And then we were gonna bring it out last year, but the part shortage and it just how long it took to wire the door car. It's like, you know what? Let's just focus on the door car. It makes more sense because that's where our time is. That's where most of our sponsors are. So let's just focus on that car. And hopefully I'll be like well enough to get into the dragster because I have some neck issues and I wasn't 100% ready to get into a car that fast until I felt physically strong enough. But it's a hard hit. I mean, they're 170, 180-mile-per-hour cars, and I didn't want to hurt myself further. So goal is definitely this year. I would love to take it to Norwalk this year, maybe because of the ice cream. But I like keep saying to dad, I'm like, come on, dad, like it's after school ends. Like, can we get this thing done? So we're getting there. That's the goal. Goal is to have it out this year, early season.
Very cool. Now, looking ahead to 2023, what's your tentative or do you have it locked in schedule?
We kind of float a lot, depending on where we are in points. I'd like to go back and do a little bit more bracket racing because haven't gotten to do that much since the pandemic hit. But I would take the dragster mostly to that. That's one of the big reasons why I kind of want to get the car done. I mean, $50,000 races in my backyard.
Right.
I mean, how can you pass that up? So I do want to do a little bit more bracket racing with that car. At the end of the day, that's what the engine's designed for. It's designed to be a bracket car. It wasn't really designed to be a super class car. And I'm gonna try to make it a super comp car, but we'll see how that goes. Um, but definitely to do Rob's series again, to do the Division 1 tour. The only race we normally don't hit is Lebanon, just with how it falls with school. Because it's like normally a week or two before school ends, and
Right.
I need to get them ready to close out the year because they're normally a little funky the last couple weeks because they're all excited to be on summer break, and I
And you
can't leave
are
them.
too. You're like, I want to go racing.
I know. I'm like, I don't want to be here. They're like, well, you want to be, you're a teacher. Of course you want to be here. I'm like, no, I don't. I'd rather be racing. Like, I don't mind you guys, but if I'm watching my friends and my competitors at a race, I'd rather be there than be in a hot classroom with you people. But
Cool.
whatever pays the bills.
There you go. Um, all right. So here's a question. I don't know if I've ever broached this one with you before, but you have your dragster, you have your door car. Somebody walks up to you and gives you the proverbial keys to anything that you want to drive. What would it be?
That's hard. I think I gotta go with the funny car on this one because I remember seeing like a nitro funny car for the first time when I was 17. I said to my dad, I'm like, I want to race that. And he's like, you're not getting in that. And he's like, he had me open the book and he's like, tell me why you're not getting in that. I'm like, is it because the wheelbase is shorter than a dragster? And he's like, yeah. And the engine's in front of you. He's like, you're not getting in that. But I have to say, I would love to get in one. Also, a super stalker. That would be pretty cool. Because the way that those things wheel stand, you can't pass one of those up. I just love watching super stock. I can't afford super stock. Thinking about the rule book for super stock gives me a headache. But just watching super stock's pretty cool. I'd love to drive one.
All right, your Mustang. You shut all the electronics off and you just let it rip. What do you think it would do?
Well, I did actually do a couple all out passes. It's normally in the 990s. I think it could probably hit 980s if we change the valve train a little bit. But it's like low 990s, which isn't bad for a little 363 8.2 deck. It's a small engine.
Have you ever now? I ask this because we know a lot of people when it comes to national events, they kind of flip between super street and super gas. Have you ever been tempted to try super gas with your car?
What's funny is I never thought I could really do it because my car doesn't really react the best. If I put a pro brake in it, because I don't have that, I probably swing super gas with that tree, but I probably wouldn't be happy with the lights. So maybe if I got a couple more tenths, I would probably consider it. But it's funny because a couple people said to my dad this year, why don't you put in super gas? It's got to be close. Why don't you put in super gas? And it's just, I mean, it's like right on the cusp. I don't think it would really like it at most places, but I don't know. I'm not going to put anything off the table. Again, maybe if it gets a couple more tenths and it gets a little faster on the tree, it's a possibility.
Cool. Now, when you go bracket racing, do you race your Mustang, or do you race your street car?
I've done both.
You've done
So I used to actually, my 2007 Mustangs actually what bought my race car because I came out my rookie year. I expected not to do so well, and I came out with like 6 wins in that car alone. I won 7 times my rookie year, but I came out with 6 wins in that red car, and I kind of just put that money away into savings. And next thing you know, Max from ACO is like, you need to buy this car. I'm like, great, Max, I can afford it. And he's like, no, you need to buy this car. And he messages the girl whose car it is. And next thing she's in my messages, like, you need to come look at this car. So of course I go down there, and it's a funny story. My mom actually says to like the dad, like my dad's talking to him and he's like, is it a stock block? And her dad wasn't sure. And that was something that worried my dad because those stock 80s blocks aren't the strongest from Ford. And before we can even like get all our questions out, my mom's like, "We'll take it." I'm like, "Are you buying the car?" And she's like, "No, it's you're paying for it, but we'll take the car." I'm like, "I bought a car and I didn't even buy the car." So next thing you know, 2 weeks later, I'm coming home with the car, and I raced my red car and my black car and my Camaro a lot at the same race, the same time, in like 2 or 3 different classes. It was a workout. I didn't need to go to the gym because I was constantly running around. But when we went super street, I kind of decided to take a step back from my street car, and I've mainly just been running the Fox body and like Super Pro. So I get to top bulb it a whole 1 or 2 times a year, and then I don't know what to set my delay at because I only do it once or twice a year. So I just take a guess, but it normally works out.
Cool. Now when you bought the car, how much stuff did you have to add to it? Was it pretty much how it sits and then you just add the Super Street stuff to it, or was it a whole rework?
um, it's kind of a funny story how it all progressed. So like I bought it was a Pro ET car, went 1080s, 1090s all out, and I raced it maybe about 30 times, and then I cracked the block. Like that I was worried about. I was going into the quarterfinals at E-Town in this big money race, and the car just shuts off, and that was the end of that block. Broke the gear in the distributor. So luckily, I did not know my dad could rebuild an engine. I didn't know he used to rebuild engines until he rebuilt this one. Um, Went out, raced it again in Pro ET, cracked that block. 50 passes in. So after that, we're like, okay, we're going to an aftermarket block. And I ran it in Pro ET at like the 1080 range for probably 3 years. And then we went Super Street in 2019. So that's when we completely redid everything. So the delay box went in the car, which I had never used a delay box before. And I'm going to Rob Keester's race, never using a delay box before, never using a trans brake in a door car before. And I'm like qualifying and I have no idea what I'm doing. Never used a throttle stop before. I didn't even have a throttle stop for the first couple races. So I just kind of had to figure it out. And yeah, so 2019 was like just kind of like everything was totally different with the car and things have changed since. Like I think the only thing that's original is 2 gauges and the hood, but we're about to change the hood. Oh, leave it to 2 gauges at this point. I think that's the only thing that's like original with the exception of like the door panels and stuff.
Right.
So it's killing me to change the hood, but we got to change the hood.
Now, do you see a time down the road where you're like, okay, this NHRA stuff was fun, but big money races taking over for you, or just kind of bouncing around?
It's tempting. I mean, I've done a few of them. I'm not going to say I've gone crazy. Like I did Piedmont's Lutz Rocker race 1 year. I brought that car down with 3 passes on it. I went down to North Carolina. Not my brightest decision, but we did it. I did foot brake with Andy and Shane for 2 years. I love big money bracket racing. I think I've only done it twice off the top. It's nasty. I'm going to be completely honest with you. It's brutal out there. I don't think it gets the credit that I don't think it gets the credit it deserves. Because I remember first round I was on the trailer with a 7-pack, and that won't hurt. To be
Yeah.
7 total and you're on the trailer first round, it sucks. But I don't think I'll ever give up NHRA completely. But if I could squeeze into my schedule some more, I would definitely like to do some more big money stuff. Because I mean, like 50 grand, 10 grand, that pays my student loans. So
Yeah.
I'm like, all I gotta do is win one race. Not that it's easy, but
It's like it's the debate that never will go away. I think it's going to be around till the end of time. Big money bracket racing versus chasing the Wally.
yeah. I mean, and it's a shame, like, to kind of have to make the decision because there's nothing like winning an IHRA Wally. I mean, I've never done it, but there's nothing like doing it. But there's also nothing like winning 10 grand or 20 grand or 50 grand, 100 grand, traveling and going 12 rounds, however many rounds there are, to beat the best of the best in the country. I mean, it's just unlike anything else. So I think my heart's kind of in both places, probably because I started as a bracket racer, but I don't know. We'll see.
All right, so you made me think of another question. What made you and your mom and dad decide Super Street was a class for you?
Actually, my mom hates it.
Your mom hates it?
So she's like, I don't understand why you want to do this. They look like they throw up off the line. I know, but I get to leave the line twice. So that's how I look at it. My dad likes the challenge of it. He doesn't do much, like I want to say he doesn't do much mathematically because I'm kind of in charge of the throttle stop, the delay box. He's like, I'm not touching it because he's like, you are not going to blame me if the car doesn't run the number. You are not going to blame me if you can't cut a light. So he will not touch the delay box. But he'll do like everything else on the car. But when it comes to like running 1090, hitting the tree, he's like, you're on your own, kid. He's like, I don't even know what button to press to set the delay. Like, he's like, I don't want to know what button to press, so you can't blame me. But my dad likes the travel aspect of it. He likes the challenge of it with the whole tuning for the track, with it being a small tire. So dad's a little bit more on my side. I don't think he wanted to do it at first though, because he's kind of a heads up racer. Like, he's used to street racing on the front streets of Philly before I was born. So he's always like, all right, you want to talk smack? Like, bring the car, line up. Like, that's my dad. But I think I kind of brought him around a little bit to the class racing. That was my idea. So I'm like, let's do it.
Well, and you're lucky too that, down in the Mid-Atlantic area, you obviously have the .90 Association. Let's, face the facts. That's just as strong, if maybe just a tiny bit stronger of a series than the divisional races up here.
Yeah.
It has now that it's grown into Top Sportsman, Top Dragster, and bringing in the juniors program, you guys are lucky down there to have strong association races like that, I think.
Yeah, and that's like one of the reasons, like, we've talked about moving just because it's so expensive to live in New Jersey. Like, we've talked about Delaware, not that Delaware's that far, but we've talked about Florida, the Carolinas, Indy. Like, we've talked about going someplace where it's a little bit cheaper. And I just keep saying, I'm like, what makes it so nice in Division 1 is how close you are to the racetrack. Like, at least for me, I'm in a good area where I'm 30 minutes from ACO. I'm an hour and a half from Maple and Cecil. Like, New Media is 3 hours. Nothing's really that far, with the exception of like New England. That's far for everybody. Virginia's 5. But you go down to Division 2, it's like 5 hours between each track. Or you go out to Division 3, it's like, again, 4 or 5 hours to each track on that circuit. And you're like, kind of rough. So that's kind of what keeps us up here, is having Rob stuff, being so close to our tracks, just our proximity. Although every time I walk outside my house and it's cold, I get mad about it. But
well, like I said, I'll gladly ship you all the snow that's on my roof and in my yard. You can have it.
no, thank you. No, thank you. I don't want it. I don't want a snow day. I don't want to make it up in June. That's racing season.
Yep. All right, let's go to the way back machine. How did Carly Wolf start racing? What was the first thing that you climbed into and buckled up in and went down the track?
My 07 Mustang, my red car had probably 150,000 miles on it, and I'm taking it down the track at ACO. And it's funny because I remember my first day, and like, my dad told me what to do, kind of. It's like, I'll figure it out. But then he like tells the starter, and June's tapping on my window, and he's like, so your dad told me this is your first time? And I'm like, great. Now, like, I actually had an idea what to do. Everything's gonna be out the window now. And he's like, just look at the guy next to you in case you get lost. Well, it was the guy next to me's first time going down the track too. So that helped. That was very successful. But overall, it was a decent day. I just had the SATs the next morning. So I'm at ACCO on a Friday night. I have to take the SAT next morning and Saturday, and it was a time. I was getting into like I got text messages from like people I was on dancing with. It was always something. But that was my first car. It went 14 10 14 0, and it was like 98 miles an hour, and I'm like, I wanted to hit 100 miles an hour so bad. And obviously it didn't get it done that night, but it was just like, it was funny because I mean, I was only at the racetrack a handful of times before I started racing, but I grew up watching Pigs. And I just remember looking over at the slick tire test in Tulane and seeing these kids my age with like real race cars going 10, 11s, 9s. And I'm like, yeah, I'll never be able to do that. And little did I know, like 4 years later, 5 years later, here we are. I never thought that this would have happened because the money just simply wasn't there. But somehow it did. And I don't know. I guess everything kind of happens for a reason.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah. Next thing you know, 2 years later, I have a Fox body. Did not expect that, but
All right, so let's talk about the people that help your program. Obviously, you've had a lot of people dive into your car and help you guys out. Let's talk about them.
Team Z, always number one, Team Z Motorsports. They are top of the line when it comes to suspension for not just Mustangs, but G bodies, F bodies, top notch stuff. I mean, Dave studies his stuff. Like, he's great with suspension. And I know if I need anything, I can call the tech line and I'll get their help, and I'll have something on my doorstep in 2 days if I need it. Winter Automotive has been great with doing our machine work. I mean, it's hard to get into a machine shop now and get your stuff back in a timely fashion if you're not somebody of a big name. And Paul's always been great with us. He's known my dad since my dad was my age. So it's a nice little relationship there. Jessel saved my butt this year. They got us out for the Cecil Divisional. Luckily, they're in New Jersey. But again, like, I lost practically my whole valve train, and I have their stuff. So to lose their stuff, it wasn't any fault of theirs. It was just wrong geometry on our end with not being able to get a head gasket, and just kind of wiped it out because the measurements got off and COVID parts. So we were just straight up honest with them, and they really helped us out. And I would not have been where I am today without them. And Champion came on board last season. I don't know so much about this coming year because they've had a lot of changes in their motorsports program. They've disbanded their motorsports program, from my understanding, which is kind of like a shock to all of us. But regardless whether they come on or not, we still plan to use their oil because it's top of the line stuff. I mean, the stuff that we pushed that oil through last year and it survived, and the oil test that we had it sent out and the way that it came back, it's top notch stuff. So Champion was great to us last year, and hopefully they renew the motorsports program, but with the internal changes, who knows?
To be determined, right?
Yeah, it was not a good Monday morning when we all got that email, but yeah, to possibly lose the motorsports division is going to kind of stink a little bit. But again, their oil's top notch. Like, I swear by it. I mean, I know there's a lot of great lubricants out there, but it's very important that you pick good stuff.
Carly Wolf approved, right?
Yeah, very much approved after that oil test. We actually didn't change the oil the entire season. This was not my idea. I brought home an oil filter in June from Ben Pilla because Ben Pilla helps us out, Lou. So I brought the oil filter home in June to change the oil before new media. My dad's like, no, it's still blue. Let's keep running it. July comes. I'm like, okay, let's change the oil. And Dad's like, no, it's still blue. Let's keep running it. So you could see how every month the oil was still blue. So we kept running it. And my dad's like, man, after we drained the oil, he's like, we still could have kept going. I'm like,
no, no.
I'm like, Scott's like, man, like that's great. Like I know we have a great product. It's like it's not good for selling oil, but because I mean, if you don't have to change it,
Right.
but I mean, like it came out pretty impressive. It was still blue.
Cool.
um, Nothing. The only thing that we really found in it was some things from when the windage tray broke on the last couple passes because I somehow broke a windage tray, which it was a top of the line windage tray, but found its way to break and then get into the oil pump and break the oil pump, which then broke the distributor gear. But and then we got sand from probably Epping when the hood was off the car for 3 hours during that storm that was coming in to fix the K member.
Yeah.
But other than that, oil looks great. It did its job. Safety internals, safety internals. That's what's there to do. That's what your class 4 and 5 base stocks are for. Why you pay for full synthetic oil if you can. You have the
Right.
clearances. And I did not throw a rod out of the engine going to a 0. Because everybody thought I was going to do that, going to a 0.
I remember you saying that. Everybody thought you were crazy to go into 0 weight.
Yeah. No, now I won't run anything else in the engine but 0 now. I'll tell you, it was fantastic for me. I picked up horsepower with it. I was more consistent with it. Nothing else is going in that engine now.
Cool.
I mean, it's a high friction engine. Of course, it's going to pick up.
Right. Cool. All right. Last question. Bucket list track. One of them, 2 of them, 10 of them.
I gotta say Vegas and Pomona, but it's hard because they're always at the beginning of the school year.
Right.
I would love to run Vegas though. It looks like so much fun, but it's like the second week of school, third week of
Right.
school.
Right.
Maybe one day. Maybe if I can win the million and take a couple years off of teaching, I can find my way to the trip. Gotta win the million and not split.
There you go.
And not split.
All right, Carly, if people want to follow you racing in 2023, where can they find you and your big smile?
Well, Instagram's Carly Wolf _C186, Carly Wolf Racing on Facebook, and my dad's talked me into YouTubing, which I'm like, I'm not the best with being on camera. I hate hearing myself talk. I hate seeing myself on camera. But I mean, it is sharing the whole journey. I mean, like people are like, I mean, you do have a cool life. So, I mean, I guess it's getting it out to the masses and showing anybody that you could race literally anything. Which is going to be one of the plans for the series. If we do a series, I might buy another car if I can pay off my truck and then do a whole series on that car. I have it planned out already. But that would be Carly Wolf Racing. So right now we just have quarter mile passes up, but I guess we'll start vlogging when I get more GoPros and when racing season starts, and we're gonna need a lot of mounts. But
You could do what I do and do it as my son calls it. You can get faux pros.
full pros?
Faux pros, FOPRO, faux pros, fake GoPros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll
Because
send
I
you a
have a
link.
GoPro mount in the car, but I need a new one because I broke that.
GoPro.
I also broke the windshield. I left this out. The wink, the rear view glass. That broke on me this year too. I had glass fly at me, and I'm like, and this was eliminations. I'm like, what was that? And I didn't think about it until I went to turn off the track, and I needed that piece of the mirror that flew out. So, yeah, things break a lot in the car from the vibration. So I've broken a GoPro mount. I've broken a rear view mirror. So we need something sturdy. I don't know. Must be that trans brake.
There you go.
That's gotta be breaking things. Because it's always when you let go of the button, something comes flying back at you. I was not expecting glass to be coming at me, but I didn't even know what it was, but
Only you.
Yeah, sounds about right. And it's like you have no idea until you're on the return road and you're like, man, like I needed that to know where the guy was in the other lane. Like when you go to turn,
Yep.
of course it was that piece that flew out. Of course
Yeah,
it was
with
that.
that one piece out of like a 4, 5, 6 panel mirror, right?
Yeah, that's just how my luck goes. It shows I'm a lucky person, but in odd ways. Like nobody's going to go red to me. Nobody's going to like have some weird thing happen. But like I will be super lucky. Like if my K member breaks, luckily the wheel will walk straight. Like my luck will show in different ways by me getting out of the car alive.
Yeah, that one was one for the books, without a doubt.
Yeah, that one, that was a shock. And I was like, it's funny because I'm like, I'm not getting out of the car because I had it happen the year before at ACO where cars came down at me while I was still on the track. So I'm like, I'm not getting out of the car. I'm staying buckled. I'm not getting out. And you say that until you see two cars coming at you at 135 miles an hour. And that's when you decide you're getting out of the car and get over the wall, which I did make it over in time. I did. But you say that you're going to stay in there, like strapped in tight, but like I couldn't move over either. Like I couldn't turn the wheel. Like I'm like literally in the middle of the track.
Refresh now, all right, now you got me thinking about that story. Refresh my memory on how did you end up getting off the track that day?
The rollback.
Oh, okay, they told you, all right.
So I got towed off on a flatbed, and then I won first round the next day on the bright side. Second round was a disaster, but won first round the next day. I'll tell you, I think if I did first round that night, it probably would have gone a lot smoother. It's hard. Like when you have something like that happen and then have to sleep on it and go the next day, it's hard.
I was gonna say, do you get now on Sunday? Do you get in the car and you're kind of like, okay, a little apprehensive, or do I just close my eyes proverbially and go?
Only if something goes wrong. Like if something goes wrong, it's kind of hard to get in the next day and like have to go to eliminations or just have to race in general. It's like if something like if you just had a bad run, having to resonate on it for 10 hours, 12 hours, it's kind of rough.
So was having it up on jack stands, working on it, kind of like a nice distraction almost.
Yeah. So like I think if I did it that night, first round that night, I would have been a lot smoother, I guess, for second round the next day. But we did first round the next day. So I had to sleep on it the whole night, not knowing if the car was really like fixed, I guess. Like we knew it was fixed, but like you're not like 100% sure until you take it down the track. And I did great first round, but like it's hard because you're like, man, am I gonna get lucky again? Like, is it gonna break again? Like it just kind of like resonates with you. But I would say that's the hardest thing about divisional racing would be just the gap between your time shot versus eliminations, like having to sit so long because you're on your own, you're your own biggest enemy. So it's not about who's in the other lane. I don't care who's in the other lane. It's just trying to keep your own head clear and stay in tune with your car, which is
Yeah,
the hardest thing.
you get too far into this thing, right?
Yeah. So that's the hardest thing. So like I'll always be doing something weird. Like I'll check my tire pressure 72 times. So I'm not thinking about anything. Like I set the numbers like before I go into the staging lanes. I normally don't change them after that. And then I'm trying to do something else to keep my mind off of it, which will be anything. But
Even just walking around.
oh yeah, I probably look like an idiot. But sometimes I'll nap. But that's what the
Right.
sunglasses are for. You pull the sunglasses down, nobody knows you're asleep. Nobody knows you're asleep. I had a couple people wake me up not knowing me, like knowing I was asleep, but that's what was nice about the tinted glass too. I had the tinted glass. Nobody
You
knew.
can go sit in the car.
Yeah. And nobody knew. It was a nice sun. It caught the sun. So it was like being like in a dark room. And I got in trouble for it and they made me take it off. But
Let me take the tint off.
it was funny because it was a double race and I went through the first race fine. It wasn't until the second race that weekend that they're like, yeah, the tint's gotta go. So then we were steaming it off in the pits and I was very sad about it. Because like it kept the car cool. Like it helped. And like it was so faded at that point. When I first bought it, it was like black. Like you couldn't see anything in the car. But like at this point, like it was so faded, you could see anything and everything, but it still kept the car cool. and it was good for taking naps. And I had like the roll bar padding, like I had the pad right on the roll bar, so you rest your head against the pad. And nobody knew. Nobody
And
knew.
so you just and climb in a car and call it a day until they.
Yeah, nobody knew. I'm like, if there's an oil down, I'm gonna. They always do the hurry up and wait. That's the lanes. Hurry up, and then you get there and you sit there for an hour. I'm like, I gotta sit on the battery charger. So, I mean, what else am I gonna do? I'm not gonna stand around and talk to people forever because then you're gonna get burned up standing on like the asphalt. So you take a nap. Put the window down, have a power window, and take a nap. Perks of having like a streetcar.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because you guys don't have an RV either.
No, we did acquire one. We
Oh, you
did.
did?
Mom broke the slide out though. So not really like having one anymore. Did break the slide out. Have to get that fixed. I want to know how much that's gonna cost. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the nicest days were sleeping in the Mustang. Because Dad and I did that once at Island Driveway. We went to a race at New Media, and then they ended up canceling like the one race we wanted to do at Island, but they still raced. So since we drove from New Media to Island, we didn't have a hotel to stay in because all the hotels were booked. So we slept in the Mustang in November. It was very cold, but like it made a great story. Nobody wants to hear you sleep in your RV at the track. Everybody does that. That doesn't make a story. But sleeping in your RV, I mean, in your Mustang in the Walmart parking lot in the middle of November is fully unprepared. That makes a story.
Making memories. That's what, as my wife always says, making memories.
I was not prepared. I did not have a blanket, but it's a memory. It's a story. The
You can relive that moment when you start the Carly Wolf Racing YouTube page, right?
Yeah, I have some pretty outrageous stories. That could be a whole series.
Too funny. Oh, Carly, it's always fun to talk to you because you're a character and I love it.
Hopefully a good character.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we'll see you throughout the summer in
Mhm.
Division One and obviously again Mid-Atlantic .90 Association. And here's to a much more successful 2023. Not that, making it through with 2022 with the car in one piece is bad, but
Mhm.
keep stepping up, stepping up, stepping up, and go from there.
Hopefully 2 cars this year.
And hopefully 2 cars, yes.
Hopefully so. And some bracket racing.
Now, what would be cool is if you ran 2 cars at New England for the divisional or the national.
That might be a little tricky because it's so far away. But
You can do it.
ACO would definitely be the easiest because it's in my backyard.
Right. Now, with running 2 cars, this will be the last question, I promise.
Mhm.
Running 2 cars, you sit in your Mustang, that's like your chair. That's something you just used to. You get in it and you're like, okay, I'm here.
Yeah.
And then you have to jump into the dragster. Would something like that totally throw you off, or would you be as comfortable?
The only thing I'm worried about going back and forth, and I've done back and forth between 2 and 3 cars in one day before. Only thing I'm worried about is my Mustang's a reverse pattern. So I go first, second, third, where the dragster is first, second, because it's forward. So
Right.
the only thing I'm worried about is putting one of them in the wrong gear. That's the only thing I'm worried because it's total opposite. But I think what helps is at least they're both Pro Tree. They're like when I used to bottom bowl going from my red Mustang to my Camaro to my Fox body, it was very challenging because the pedal response for foot braking was so different. And like my red car was very finicky, where my Camaro and my Fox body are stiffer. It's more of a cable, where the Mustang was drive by wire. So I think I'll be okay as long as I put in the right gear.
Put a post-it right on your
Oh, my whole dash is going to be covered. Like, put on the Pro Brake because I don't have a Pro Brake in the door car. So I'm going to have to remember to hold the button. We're going to wire it up to a switch. I'm going to have to remember to hit the switch to back up. Hit the race pack if we don't activate it to RPM. put it in first, put your visor down, because 95% of the time I do put the visor down. I'm gonna have Post-it notes all over the drive. So you're gonna walk by and you're like, what is wrong with this girl? Like I'm gonna have everything all over it. So I don't forget to do something until I at least get in the habit. Don't suck's also gonna be on there.
Yeah, so, yeah, once you get comfortable, get in it, get comfortable. Because like I said, with your Mustang, it's, it's literally like hopping in a recliner and it's just part of who you are.
Yeah. So we're gonna do a track rental with the dragster where I can just go and I can just get used to it. Only a few people will be there just so I can focus on the car and not on anybody else. But I mean, because it's been a few years since I've been in a dragster and I've never been in one that's fast. So I just want to focus on it and get comfortable with it like it's my door car. But I do have to say, last time I was in a dragster, I felt more comfortable in the dragster than I actually did the door car.
Really?
So I don't know why. I just felt like things went smoother, I guess. But I don't know. I guess I was just more natural at it. But I mean, it's also point and shoot to an extent. So
Right,
where my door car moves around sometimes. So small tire,
right.
anything and everything, it's gonna pick it up on the track. So I don't really feel everything, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But it's
Very
definitely
cool.
gonna be more of a bracket car.
Right. Awesome. Well, listen, obviously, best of luck in 2023, and you know, good luck to you and your mom and dad, and keep smiling.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. All right, Carly, have a great night, and again, best of luck, and check out Carly Wolf Racing on Facebook and follow her nonstop action behind the wheel.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Carly. Have a great night.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Carly Wolf, everybody. Awesome. I enjoy talking to her. Like I said, she's an absolute riot and a big old grin. Never every time I talk to her, she's had that grin. When she has almost crashed her car at the divisional where the K member broke, walked over, talked to her, still had a big old smile on her face. So no complaints about that. One thing I would like to show everybody, I just got to make sure I put the non-business side up, is if you've paid attention to our Facebook page, you know that the PD Awards are going to be coming up very soon. I went and picked up the trophies today. Let's see if I can get right about there. So we got those in. We're getting everything together, and we will be announcing by Friday or Saturday at the latest what day we're going to be doing the PD Awards. So be sure to check out our Facebook page, Racers News Network, and it's going to be fun. Next Tuesday night, 7:00, we will be back. Going to have myself, Pete, and my good friend Bob Bender is going to be joining us. So again, be sure to tune in, check us out live next Tuesday night at 7:00. And for everybody getting ready to go to the Baby Gators and to the Gator Nationals and to whatever else is happening in the warm weather, stay safe, have fun, good luck, and we'll talk to you all soon.